That damn man, Anthony Edwards.
You're witnessing a changing of the guard in the NBA.
You see him fighting a bear, you help the bear.
MJ, Kobe, Anthony Edwards.
For years, the basketball community has been looking for the leader of the next generation. Tatum, Luka, Giannis, but he was seemingly under our own two eyes the whole time. So as the dust settles and greats of the NBA become old, Anthony Edwards seems to have stepped into the spotlight as the undeniable force headlining the next era of basketball greatness. His authenticity, charisma, and personality have captivated a nation overnight. But in a league of eccentric stars, his competitiveness stands alone. An apex predator, a trash talker, and in a league of foul baiting and three-point chucking, he seized Game 1 in Denver with a fadeaway turnaround in his signature 43-point performance. Put together, his rapid rise to superstardom is no surprise, yet put into context with Ant's upbringing, it's an inspiring story, one of adversity and hard work. As he's always acclaimed, Ant was physically gifted from young, most notably a top football player in the Pop Warner League, as one of the best backs in the country at the under 10 age. It was up until 14 that he'd waver his dreams of becoming an NFL star to focus on basketball, but it was around this age that tragedy struck within the Edwards family. His mother passed in early 2015, and later in the year, his grandma Shirley passed as well, both victims of a tragic cancer. And within an 8-month span, Ant had lost the two backbones of his family. But amongst the pain, he was sure to continue on his journey of basketball, knowing it was what they both wanted most for him. And to this day, he dedicates his upbeat and joyful personality to his grandma. At the end of the day, he's MJ with a smile on his face.
Every time people see me, I always got a smile on my face no matter what's going on.
Raised amongst his siblings, he built his life around basketball and family. Edwards had bursted onto the scene primarily through his athleticism at just 15 years old, moving like no one else at his age. But as recognition followed, his game seemingly improved, something that's evidently transferred with him into the NBA. In gliding through high school, the 6'6" guard had unrivaled confidence. Come his senior year, averages of 29, 9 and 2 rendered him a 5-star recruit and a top 5 player in the entire nation. He committed to hometown Georgia, allowing him to stay put with family only an hour's away. And in his one-and-done season at college, Edwards' tools were without question, yet his feel for the game was very much in dispute. He committed nearly as many turnovers as assists, simultaneously launching 16 shots a game on poor shooting splits, often settling for tough jumpers. But the freshman, 6'5", 225 pounds, was everything NBA executives could hope for in a two-way wing of the future. So he profiled potentially as an elite 3-level scorer in the NBA, with an accrual of step backs, jab steps, and pull-up jumpers, combining with it powerful drives to the lane and above the rim acrobatics. But aside from his poor shooting splits, the real question lied in his effort and consistency. Knowing Ant today, hearing questions about his competitiveness are baffling, but at the time were more than justified. Far too often he'd collapse defensively, particularly off the ball, and in between the flashes of defensive brilliance were frequent brain lapses, almost single-handedly sinking the Bulldogs' defense. It didn't help that leading up to the draft, Ant declared basketball as more of an occupation than a love. Ant had all the physical tools in the world, but questioned was his ability to translate his 19 points per game scoring into winning basketball at the next level, combining with it consistent effort on a nightly basis.
How do you think you fit into the way that the NBA has evolved these last few years?
I love it. I can't wait. I can't wait to get to that spot.
With the first pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Anthony Edwards.
My grandmother's right here and my mother's right here. They're with me at all times.
It's easy to forget Ant was the third youngest player in his class, only a few months older than prospects entering the following year's draft. And without a summer league, no G League, Ant was seamlessly thrown into the NBA fire. Pre-All-Star break, he'd averaged 15 points on an abysmal 37% from the field. but an acclimatization to the league post the All-Star break showed the NBA what he was about. He averaged 24 points on 45% shooting. His usage rate of 27% led all rookies, as only 3 players in the entire league attempted more shots post All-Star break than Ant. An unforeseen workload for a rookie, giving light to a dismal Minnesota franchise. The Edwards-Towns pairing, a great reason for optimism in the Minnesota skyline. But again, questions that drove his pre-draft weaknesses still shown in the rookie. Defense is effort, claimed Ant. Yet he failed to practice what he preached, as his effort waned and his execution faltered. It was most noticeable in transition when Edwards would often jog back half-heartedly. And despite the good numbers post All-Star break, on the season, amongst those with 300 pull-up jumpers, Ant was the clear-cut worst, shooting 31% on these shots. It's like Ant felt he was always on a hot shooting streak, leading him to often find his pull-up jumper when it wasn't his best option. But the overall feeling out of his rookie season was one of promise and clarity. That one day, if Ant could get it together, not next year, but years down the line, he could be a premier guard in the league. But it was unreasonable to expect all NBA production straight away with the minimal experience under his belt. So coming into year 2, it became clearer than ever, Ant could handle all the responsibility of being the guy.
On the feed, and Anthony Edwards showed that Vince can kill.
Confidence and bravado hinted at the idea, but it was noticeably reflected in his play this year. He had a 48 performance at the start of the season, telling Steph Curry he was going for 50. I mean, who does that? Well, someone that believes they're the best player in the world. It was the charisma that fans connected with immediately.
Feel like Black Jesus.
But the fans could connect the charisma with a relentless on-court play. He improved from a woefully inefficient scorer as a rookie to roughly league average in that regard, which is incredibly impressive when you consider his volume and difficulty of shot attempts. He proved that his shooting was real, most importantly in the postseason, capping off a play-in win with a 30-point game amongst KAT's worst game of his career, following it up with 36 points in game 1 of the first round. Tough jumper after tough jumper. Questions were answered in these games when it mattered most. He wasn't afraid of the moment. In fact, built for postseason success and its pressures.
I don't feel any pressure. Like, I can't wait to win games.
But what caught my eye was his maturity for a second-year player.
No, he don't do angry. Jerome McLaughlin and Josh Okogie are the best teammates I've ever played with in my life. Go from playing this many minutes to 3-4 games and not getting in the game and still have the same energy as if they played is out of the world. And
I mean, this is a 20-year-old. And within the span of 2 years, Ant had answered majority of the character questions that faced him coming into the NBA, even if he hadn't won a playoff series. Entering 2022-2023, Ant, well, he started poorly, being fined $40,000 for homophobic comments on social media. So now in year 3, Ant had to remove himself from the young player discussions, instead solidifying himself as an all-star player, producing a year of consistent elite basketball, and prove himself to be the #1 option on a now strong Wolves team. And as we'd come to expect, Ant's production would take strides, as he's done every season since high school, shooting close to 46% from the field and 37% from 3 on 25 points on his way to his first All-Star appearance. Yet his clutch time stats left a lot to be desired, rendering him with the 3rd most turnovers for anyone with 100 minutes in clutch time.
Just a little too much hero ball right now, you know.
It would ultimately personify a disappointing year for the Wolves as a whole. It was still a good year for the 3rd-year player, don't get it twisted. But amongst superstar talks in the offseason, the All-Star year and a poor team record was disappointing in some regards. The talent was undeniable.
I literally said top 5 player in my head.
Kid's special, man.
But it was now about converting it to wins. Edwards himself admitting he can't consider himself a young star until he wins in the playoffs. After losing in back-to-back first-round series and perhaps losing control at the end of the Denver series, but at the end of the day he's showing passion, and that's all the fans want to see from their players. But for Ant, many of the clutch woes from the past leaked into the new season. From Christmas onwards, the Timberwolves sported the worst clutch time offensive rating in the entire NBA, scoring just 0.95 points per possession in these moments. Ant, having proven himself to be the guy down the stretch, was most accountable. shooting 37% from the floor and 20% from 3 to go with 10 turnovers against 12 assists in these moments. Not what you're asking for from your franchise player. Admitting he has to stop holding the ball in the fourth, leading ball movement to stagnate. But for a while, not much changed. They were winning games as the 1 seed, but misguidance in the fourth was limiting their total success. As if Edwards himself didn't believe his own comments. It wasn't until Cat went down with a meniscus that change really took place. Without the 25 points per game scorer in Towns, Ant was receiving all the attention down the stretch. Reality kicking in that Ant had no choice but to get his teammates involved. And the Wolves ended the season strongly without their all-star teammate for majority of it. Ant has punched himself in as an all-NBA player, no doubt, not sacrificing the increased workload for efficiency, becoming ever reliant on his killer mid-range game and getting to the free throw line more than ever, making 86.4% of them, nearly up from 10% last year. He's also dishing out more assists with a better assist-to-turnover ratio than ever before. Steady improvement across the board, and defensively not too far off an all-defensive team. No more neglecting that side of the ball. But his superstar moment was personified on March 8th. After hitting clutch pull-up jumper after clutch pull-up jumper, scoring 44 points to give the Timberwolves the lead, all they needed was one more stop.
I don't know if I've seen a more amazing highlight in the last decade than this play.
Well, we know that's how he's wired. You know, he likes that. He wants that. He's not afraid of that.
Yeah, I hit my head, I think on the rim. It's hurting real bad.
Eastman blocks. Edwards getting up, and good night.
Edwards improving himself over the course of the season as the guy, but the playoffs have proven to be a different beast, and in his career, despite playing well, was yet to achieve any postseason success. Adding further fuel to fire, the Wolves were underdogs to the 6-seeded Suns. But in a series featuring Durant and Booker, Edwards asserted himself as the alpha in what felt like a changing of the guard between himself and his idol Durant, taking Minnesota to heights they hadn't seen in 20 years, the second round. In the process, ascending himself to superstardom in the NBA. He won over the world with pull-up jumpers in the clutch, persistent defense, mind-numbing dunks, and a charming charisma only mirrored by the all-time greats. Regular players don't shoot 11 of 15 from the floor for 31 points in the second half, when their team is trailing at halftime on the road to close out a series. Who does that? Let alone do it for an entire series against an all-time great. The scoring gets all the attention as you'd expect, but it was this series that it feels like Edwards had arrived as a playmaker. There were times early on in his career when it felt like he passed because he had to. Now, passing out of willingness, averaging 7 assists over the 4-game stretch. The 22-year-old is also the first one to congratulate and move all of his glory over to his teammates. A true franchise cornerstone. And regardless of how his playoffs conclude, Ant has cemented himself to the world, a superstar now, and there's no going back. But it doesn't stop here. After his most recent performance, leading Minnesota to victory on the road to the reigning champs with 43 points. 3 straight games of 35 points in the playoffs as a 22-year-old. The sky is the limit for Minnesota. Ant capping off the win with a fadeaway jump shot, eerie similar to the likes of Michael Jordan. The way their accessories each lie, their freakish athleticism, signature turnaround and fierce competitiveness, intertwining the two players, slowly elevating the small franchise Minnesota in a similar vein to Jordan and Chicago. And for all we know, he is the next Michael Jordan.
Do you feel like MJ could guard you?
Hell no.
The shoes, the marketing, it's all slowly taking over. And if you remember the 1992 Dream Team, it saw the likes of Bird and Magic hand down the throne to Jordan on the national stage. This time, Durant, LeBron and Steph go as the old guard, and Ant may well be the one to take the throne.